Social Music Talk. With me is Rob Weldon from the music industry and an author of a new series. Actually, it's been around for a while that we'll get to. But first, let's talk about your amazing history in radio and music. Starting off with your radio career that began back in the, early 90s?
Yeah, 92. I started as an intern at a radio station. It was a top 40 station. And 2 years into it, it flipped. We were talking about Rick Gillette earlier. He was
In
our programming
Detroit.
director. Oh, yeah, he's awesome. I love that guy. I still do after all these years, especially.
WHYT.
Yeah, 96.3 jams.
Mhm.
And, I wasn't super top 40 myself. I mean, I get it, like, whatever. But we flipped alternative. So I started, dealing with specialty shows and talking to record reps more often. And after about a year of that, I'm still 22 and I'm leaving college and I get offered a job at I.R.S. Records. So I moved out to LA, and of course, everybody knew I.R.S. Records, But anyway, yeah. So I went to I.R.S. Records when I was 22 years old. I was way too green. I did not have the experience for it. I guess I love music. I mean, I always have, but I don't know. They took a chance on me. Maybe they couldn't afford somebody with more experience. I mean, that's the nature of the industry. You never know. But when you're 22 and you're offered a job, a grown-up job in LA, you take it. Like, why would you say no, right?
So that was like 1995, and
That
that
was
was
95. Yeah.
who were some of the bands on I.R.S.? I know REM had been on there, but they moved to Warner.
Yeah, we still had Squeeze and the Buzzcocks, but they were a shell of what they had been in the past. We still had Dada, as you know. We had them play your festival.
Yeah, Quad,
We're
Sacramento.
That's right. We're trying to break Gren and the Daisies, and that didn't really happen. And I was only there for about a year when the label was folded into Capitol, which again happens when bigger labels have smaller labels on their roster. I went to Revolution for a little while. That was actually Giant Records for the time. For about 2 years, it was Missy Worth's label, and she renamed it Revolution. So that's when I was there. And then really, in the record industry, I feel like I made my mark at Roadrunner. I was at Roadrunner for almost 10 years, and a lot of rock and metal and whatnot. But
Starting with Nickelback, right?
way before that, when I started there, the big bands were Typo Negative and Sepultura. We were just breaking Cold Chamber. Then we broke Fear Factory, then Slipknot, then Nickelback, and then we can argue about what the definition of breaking, but then Theory of a Dead Man.
Quickly about Slipknot. Slipknot played in Ozfest in '99, and that was a big launching for their career, right?
The record came out in June of that year, exactly.
Okay. And so tell us the story real quickly about Slipknot, how they did it, sold so many records without really having hit singles. I mean, they kind of had rock hits, but not
I'm telling you that it just, in my opinion, they went viral before viral. Do you know what I mean? Like, this was before social media, but it just when I say it hit, it was like they would play the side stage, and the band before them would have 3,000 or 4,000 people at the side stage of Ozfest, and they'd come on and it would be 7,000 or 8,000 people, and they were going literally apeshit. It was insanity. I saw the first show I saw them at was in Washington at the Gorge, and they're swinging stuff around, and Clown accidentally hit Corey in the head with the baseball bat. Like, because he's swinging it around, whatever, and all of a sudden Corey disappears. So the part of the song is he's supposed to be singing again, and he's just yelling like, "Where the fuck is Corey? Where's Corey?" And no one knew where it was. Well, he was bleeding, and then he comes rushing back out, and I don't think he had stitches yet. It's not a football game where they're just putting clamps on you or whatever, but they probably doused him with water and whatever, and he ran back out, and they finished the song. And yeah, he did have to get stitches. And that was the first show I saw them with. It was insane. And then other shows I saw.
Mosh pit band, kind of, right?
Way more than kind of. It was fully, it was people soup. You know what I mean? It was just boiling over. But I saw them play in Vegas, and it was so hot. It's 113 degrees at 3 in the afternoon, and they're playing this skateboard, bicycle festival,
Mhm.
um, trick bikes, whatever. Um, and it's so hot. They're slamming Red Bulls before they go on stage, and he's lifting his mask and puking off the side of the stage, and then still yelling and singing, and then puking again. And I'm like, I've never seen this. This is my first run of dates with these guys, and this was already going on. I'm like, that's how it happened. Everybody was telling these stories. He got hit in the head with a baseball bat. He's puking off the side of the stage, like,
So it
and because
created
it's
lots of
real,
stories out of
lots
those
of but it's
scenery.
all real. They weren't manufactured
Okay.
stories,
Okay.
like this is really what's happening.
They weren't just PR stunts.
No, no, not at all. There's lots of that now, especially with social media, but
Yeah,
back
right.
then, yeah.
Everything's planned that way now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
Virtually nothing's that.
while you were Roadrunner, describe your job because you worked radio promotion, right? But
Right.
did Slipknot, was there a lot of resistance to Slipknot even though they sold a
Oh,
lot of records?
a ton. Like it was people didn't want stuff that heavy on the radio. It was too crazy. I mean, but what was interesting about that was we hadn't worked a single commercial radio. We had worked stuff to college and to metal shows and whatnot, but the only station in the country that were playing them in regular rotation was KKDM in Des Moines. Obviously, they're from Des
My
Moines,
mom's hometown.
but KUPD
I don't
98.
think she would have liked Slipknot.
No, I doubt it.
She
But
liked
98,
Frank Sinatra though.
nice. 98 Rock in Phoenix, KUPD, they were tight enough with their local promoters that when Ozfest came to town, they were able to make that U Fest. So Slipknot was on their birthday festival, which was actually Ozfest.
Mhm.
So they wanted to promote the show, and they're like, "Hey, what can we play off the record?" And I'm like, "Wait and Bleed." I mean, that's the closest thing. That's what
Like a
Des
ballad
Moines,
almost.
for them, and they were playing it off the album.
Yeah.
And as you know, by the time we worked it as a single, we had softened it a bit. We'd cut out some of the screaming and made a radio edit out of it. But
Mm,
they played it full on, like from that, and the sales exploded. I mean,
okay.
it's one of those things. I mean, like orders of magnitude. It was ridiculous, and we really, really knew we had a hit here because 10 or 12 spins a week was like it was crazy how many records that was selling. So we absolutely did have to work that as a single at that point.
But how
You
much
know,
of their success has been due to just having a crazy live act with
well
wearing masks?
that's what got it started. But I'm telling you, when people played it on the radio, people weren't hearing stuff like this before on the radio, so that it just added zero to the end of everything. If you were going to sell, 250,000 records, now you're going to sell 2.5 million records. It was one of those kind of things. But they were going to have a career no matter what. Even without radio, they were going to be successful.
That's what it seems like. Yeah. Now jumping to
Yeah.
Nickelback, they were very successful. They actually sold the most of any rock band, right, of the past few decades.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's something like 50 million records at this
That
point.
is crazy.
And rock bands aren't selling that kind of music anymore.
Right.
I mean, even they're
But
not.
were
Like
they the
none of them.
band who killed rock and roll? Because a lot of people ended up joking about them in the I Hate Nickelback
Oh
campaign
yeah.
and all
Oh
that
yeah.
garbage. I actually think they were a very good sounding band, but their sound seemed to get duplicated a lot on radio. Plus, they got overplayed a lot.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that caused a lot of people to have a backlash on Nickelback.
Absolutely. It is what it is. But the thing is, my favorite memory of Chad Kroeger is that their first tour in the US was opening for Creed. And of course that's fitting, that makes sense. But so this would have been 2000, and they were playing in Reno, just a sideshow. K. Rock 1045 was Pure Rock 1045 was playing them, and they had a bad review in the Reno Gazette. And I was on the bus. Well, it wasn't even a bus; it was a freaking RV. And I see Chad reading it, and hey man, I'm sorry. Like our publicist, they can get the reviews. We don't write them for them. They have their own. And he's like, it's fine, Rob. He folds it. He goes, critics are never gonna like us ever. We just want to get played on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started asking me questions about call out research, like how long are those hooks?
So Chad knew about radio, the radio.
100%. He asked us those questions. How long are those hooks? And he goes, well, wait a minute, but the spins went up here. You said they're going down. I go, yeah, well, we changed the hook of Leader of Men from the chorus to the intro. And at that point, it started getting good research again. People were sick of the hook. They weren't sick of the song.
Right.
And he goes, oh, so I should have hooks there and there. And I'm not taking any credit for what he did, because I guarantee he asked every one of us reps that. You know, like I'm one of 10 people that he spoke to.
Right.
But this is the kind of mind that he had. He's
That's
like, I just want to get played on the radio.
Alexakis of Everclear was like that. He knew about radio and everything you're talking about, the spins at all the stations. Yeah,
so. But he wanted to know about call out research, which no other band had asked me before or since. Like they didn't care.
Only radio industry people talk about that. Huh?
That's right. So because even listeners don't know it exists.
Right.
So it was funny is that Leader of Men started cold. It went ring, never waited as a wrong song. Ring, I am not a leader of men because I prefer to follow. That was the first song. And it was funny because they had only sold, I don't know, 150, 175,000 records on the first album, The State.
Right.
And, you know, they're probably 1 million, 2 million in the hole. Who knows what it was? So I wasn't in those meetings, but they were definitely in debt.
Okay.
But you don't drop a band before you hear the new demos.
Right.
So
it was their third album that was a big hit, right?
The very first album never got worked. But the first album on Roadrunner was The State.
Okay.
And that had Leader of Men was the first single. Old Enough was the second single. But when, but again, you don't drop them back until you hear their demo. And all of a sudden, the first song is Ring, Never Made It as a Wise Man. It started cold again and had 5 different hooks. So every time it started burning out at radio, we'd ask the radio station to switch the hook. They were just burned out on the hook. That particular hook, they weren't burned out on the song. And then that ended up
popped up.
So at that time, How You Remind Me ended up setting the record for most airplay ever.
Yeah.
All formats combined in 1 week. And then the next week they broke that record. Right. And then later on, Linkin Park in the end broke that record, and it just kept moving because everybody started doing that same trick. Okay. But I want to say that it was because of Nickelback that actually was a thing, and that's why they're so hated, because they were so overplayed, you know? But that's what he wanted. Like he never ever, he was like, dude, critics are never gonna like us, man. It's okay.
Got what he wanted, lots of airplay.
And yeah, and I'm sure his bank account is happy. You know?
Now let's move on to your story of how you went from the music industry to becoming an author.
Yeah, it's funny. I had originally gone to college for a scholarship for writing, but that led to my internship at a radio station. So I'd always written on like airplanes and in hotels, and sometimes even just backstage during sound check. I got an hour to kill. I may as well, write in my notebook. But nothing was really getting done. After Roadrunner, I managed the Stone Foxes for 5 years. And then when I backed up, I'm like, you know what? I have a lot to say right now, and it's not about the music industry. So I just started collating all my notes, and it just turned into this thing. And it's called the Omnist Series. And I've already published 5 books. And the 6th one, I'm working on revisions right now. So yeah, it's just fun. But it's I call it horror comedy.
Okay.
I mean, it is horror comedy. I call it magical noir. It doesn't exist. I googled it. So
you're self-published, right?
At this time, yes.
And that means you can write whatever you want, right?
Whatever the hell I want.
There's nobody editing you or telling you can or can't do this.
The difference is I hire an editor, and I have a proofreader, and I have an artist that makes the covers. I still have a team, but I'm in control of that team.
That's great.
You know what I mean? I have somebody else that helps me with my website, etc. And I throw lodges, which are like live shows, but I have other people speak. I read from the books, and they feel more like concerts. I mean, I'm selling T-shirts there and coffee mugs and things like that.
So in a way, it's like Slipknot because it's bigger than the music, right?
Yeah,
It's a
not as much
package.
yelling. Not as much yelling. But it's funny because like I literally just posted on social media a picture of Jack Kerouac and Neil Cassidy. I had framed a poster that a friend of mine had given me, and it just made me think about how back in like '06 or '07, before I left Roadrunner, Corey Taylor is very well read. A lot of people don't know that about him. He's very intellectual. He's an artist in many ways. It's not just being the singer of a band. And but we were talking a lot about Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg and William S. Burroughs, a lot of beat stuff.
Mhm.
And it just made me think of him. So I thought that was funny.
So let's go over your books real quickly here.
Yeah.
Consumia's Spiritual Emporium. That's the first of 5 that are out so far.
Correct. Yes, and that is actually like the geographical center of this universe. And then the Omnist is an app, which is like the spiritual center of the universe. Think like a dating site where the more questions you answer, the better they are at matching you. But in this case, they're matching you with gods to worship, with prayers to recite, with merch to buy at the Emporium, um, omniscience as he speak. And omniscient might encourage you to worship the goddess sleep or the goddess of FOMO or whatever. It's supposed to be ridiculous, but the
Is
Omnis
it a
app is
satire on AI in any way?
book 6 is,
Okay.
but that's not out yet.
Okay, because AI is
Yeah,
the trend right now. I just wondered if
correct.
like
It
tapping
does.
into it.
Well, we've always had algorithms, but it's meant to be more magical. The app knows more about you than it should. Like
Okay.
it's giving you advice throughout the day about what's actually happening to you.
Okay.
But anybody can use the app. It could be a witch, it could be undead, it could be a vampire, like whatever.
Is it
And
easy to hack?
well, book 6 might deal with that a little bit.
So number 2 is mostly human, mostly cat.
Yeah, have so by the way, all of these books have different main characters, different POVs, so I can sort of triangulate a truth a little bit better. Um, if you've ever I dated a cat woman once, like she had literally 11 cats at the time. And I made a joke about, you know what, I bet you these are all your ex-boyfriends, because one of them had like everybody's got like a Mr. Whiskers kind of cat or whatever, but one of them had like a normal name, like Steve or something. And I'm like, you know what? I bet you these are exes. Well, here I am many, many years later writing a book about that. What if a woman really was a witch and she changed her exes into cats because she had a fear of separation but still wanted to control their lives?
Okay, the Omnist and the Cosmic Egg.
Okay, so there's a condition called Cotard's delusion where you literally think you're dead. You may not eat for days because dead people don't eat, or you might walk into traffic because they just drive through you. I mean, so it can be a very dangerous condition to have. And then an accident happens, and now he spends the rest of the book trying to convince people he's still alive. I just think that's funny.
Okay, 4th book is the Patina of Dorothy Grant.
If you're familiar with the picture of Dorian Gray, and that's a 19-year-old dandy in the Victorian era who has a painting that takes on all his sins and ages and gets ugly and whatnot. I just modernized it. So now it's an 18-year-old female with social media that ages and takes on all her sins and gets ugly. So I think that would drive an influencer crazy. So it's just fun. Remember, this is all horror comedy. Like
Right,
it's
right.
all satire, but it's not slapstick.
Okay,
It's dark humor.
right. And it's unique in a certain way because no one else has done this kind of series before, right?
In my opinion, I mean, I haven't read everything out there, but in my opinion, this is what I want to read, and I'm not finding it anywhere, so I'm doing it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
book number 5, Wide-Eyed Wyatt's Liquid Map. Is
Yeah. So this guy
map
works
or
at
nap?
nap. Yeah.
Oh,
Why that?
okay.
It's a liquid nap, meaning it's a joke because if you're really tired and you need a nap, you can have this quad shot espresso drink, and it's a liquid nap. You don't need to go to sleep. But basically, this guy works at a coffee roaster in Van Nuys, and the goddess sleep wants to kill him, and he doesn't know why. And it's actually a love triangle from the god's origin story. They're the two mortals are reincarnations of people from back then. But what do you do when the god of sleep's trying to kill you? So you got to
So
figure something out. But I think it's funny that he works at a coffee roaster too. You know?
the Omnist series is available where? At Amazon?
Amazon, yeah, you can do that.
And yeah, I watched your interview with Rob Acampora. That was a pretty funny interview, I thought.
I was nervous as hell on that one. It just we had technological problems,
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
it wasn't his fault, and
Well, that's
it
why I'm
wasn't my
recording
fault.
this one. I could edit out any problems.
Well, we're not. See, I'm way more relaxed this time because we're not
Yeah,
having those issues. You know.
right, right. So, but I like that interview anyway, and he asked you a lot about the book, and I'm just curious, where do you go from here? And is this working out for you as a writer?
I mean, the thing is, I used to make a lot more money, and I'm happier than I've ever been. So I feel like this is what I'm meant to do, and I feel like this is untapped. Like I could do this series forever, as long as I can keep affording to have my staff, you know, have my team doing this. I'm going to keep doing it, and eventually, I think, and I hope, and I'm knocking on wood, uh, it's a streaming series or it's a series of movies or whatnot. I'm in the right place for that, but I can't hold my breath either. I need to just keep writing as well as I can.
So basically, you're producing a lot of content at this time, and then
Mm-hmm.
whatever happens with all of it, that's for the future to decide.
That's right. And the events that I'm doing are getting bigger and bigger. I feel like I'm an unsigned band in Los Angeles that's getting bigger and getting more buzz. And you know, at some point, something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rob, it's been great talking with you. It's been years since we talked before, but
And
great reconnecting with you here, talking about your career and your latest creative endeavors, which I'm going to check out more. So thanks
right
for
on.
joining me, Rob.
You're awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. Great to see you.
Social music.